Muslim rights concern group endorses prescription of Islamic movement in Nigeria. Lagos State House of Assembly to probe abandoned 7 billion naira cardio-renal center in Bagada General Hospital. In international news, Uroy, California hosts vigil for victims of food festival shooting. And in sport, 12 teams confirmed for the African Club Championships.
This is ANN News.
The Muslim rights concern, MURIC has backed the federal government on prescription of Islamic movement in Nigeria, otherwise known as Shiite. MURIC describes government action as a move to strengthen peace and harmony in Nigeria. The group says the prescription would prevent Nigeria from battling another security threat like Boko Haram. MURIC's director, Professor Ishaq Akintola, has asked the Iranian government not to interfere in internal affairs of a sovereign country like Nigeria. Akintola says MURIC recognizes the right of Shiites to practice their faith, but it should be strictly within recognized rules of engagement. The organization stressed that Islamic movement in Nigeria must respect fundamental rights of its neighbors before embarking on any action. Meanwhile, leader of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki and his wife, Zinat, have been denied bail by a Kaduna State High Court on Monday. The court will rule on their bail application next week. The court had earlier adjourned hearing in the corpus application for permission to travel to India for medical attention for what they say was a deteriorating health. In the application, both had promised to return to Nigeria as soon as they were discharged from the hospital. El-Zakzaki has been in detention since 2015 for alleged culpable homicide, unlawful assembly, and disruption of public peace, among other charges. The People's Democratic Party is asking the Senate to send names of ministerial nominees to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for further investigation and screening. The party's National Publicity Secretary, Kola Ologbodiyan, also stated that a screening must have enabled the Senate to further confirm that many of the nominees presented to it by President Buhari are former state governors and heads of ministries whom he alleged had serious corruption cases to answer. Ologbodiyan says the president's nomination of persons with questionable background to serve in the federal cabinet signals that he not only condones but also explicitly promotes corruption. The dispute between Lagos State and the federal government over the control of waterways was resolved on Monday after both parties signed an agreement of cooperation. Officials of the National Inland Waterways Authority were led by the Managing Director, Senator Olorunnibe Mamora, for the ratification of the treaty at the office of the State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. The two authorities have been at loggerheads and had been tied up in a long legal battle over the control of waterways surrounding Lagos. The new agreement provides that both parties will now be jointly responsible for the waterway's safety. They will also harmonize tariffs and monitor regulations. Governor Sanwo-Olu said the signing of the agreement will open investments in water transportation, which he said is one of his administration's cardinal projects. And still in Lagos, members of the Lagos State House of Assembly have agreed to probe the abandonment of the equipment at the 7 billion naira cardio-renal center in Bagada General Hospital. And members of the House Committee on Health, led by Akim Shokunle, have toured health facilities across the state. Shokunle says the committee found there is shortage of manpower and that there are non-functioning ambulances, insecurity, and unequipped laboratories. It was during that tour they discovered the multi-billion naira cardio-renal facility was abandoned. Shokunle says his committee was told the cardio-renal machines were locked up after working for only 2 weeks. House Majority Leader Sanao Agumbiade has moved that the suppliers of the equipment be invited for questioning and that the public be involved in the investigation. The lawmakers also would invite officials of the Ministry of Health to clarify the issue. The business community in Nigeria and employers of labor have been urged to invest in HIV/AIDS prevention, care and support to end the epidemic in the country. Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Business Coalition Against AIDS, Benga Alabi, says such investments constituted good business sense. Alabi says the three great pandemics of our time, HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria, should be viewed in terms of their devastating impact on all demographic indicators such as life expectancy at birth, healthcare, health, age, and sex distribution. Alabi said the private sector should work hand in hand with the government to address the growing challenges because of human resources. Coming up, African stories. Sudan military rulers demand accountability killing of school children. And later, international news. The city of Gilroy, California holds vigil in honor of those killed in food festival shooting.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to news across Africa. Journalists in the Sudan say outraged protesters have gathered in several cities, including the capital, Khartoum, following the killing of 5 protesters in North Kordofan state. At least 4 school children and 1 adult were shot dead when security forces broke up a students' protest in El Abidi, Sudanese city on Monday. An oversight curfew was announced late on Monday in 4 towns of Sudan's North Kordofan state after the incident. Sudan Professionals Association, organizers of the demonstration, say the ruling military council is to blame for the deaths. The group is now calling for nationwide protests. It is also demanding an immediate transfer of power to civilians. There have been continuous anti-government protests across Sudan since last December. Those protests have led to the removal of President Omar al-Bashir 3 months ago. Doctors linked to the opposition say nearly 130 persons have died. Authorities put the figure at 78. And despite the huge influx of refugees every day from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda has continued to allocate free farmland to refugee households to help them start a new life. The East African country has a policy that permits refugees to work, cultivate land, and move around freely. This fosters good neighborliness in the region. Daniel Arapmoy reports.
Uganda has been subject to a great deal of international attention for the way it has fostered positive relations between host communities and refugees. Despite the huge numbers of refugees arriving every day from the Democratic Republic of Congo, the East African country has continued to allocate free land to refugee households for agricultural production. Basa Kene is one among hundreds of refugees who have fled the unrest in his home country to seek refuge in Uganda. Basa, who lives with his wife and 6 children, was allocated a piece of land in Changwali refugee settlement southwest of Uganda's Hoima district, a place he has lived for the past 2 years. Basa used part of the land given to him by the Ugandan government to build a small house for his family. The remainder of the land was used to cultivate a few crops to supplement the family's diet, away from the weekly food distribution by the World Food Programme.
As we receive them, after refugee getting a status, getting an attestation, a prima facie, that family is allocated a piece of land, 50 by 100 meters. So these refugees are supposed to use this land, build a house, put a toilet, and use part of that land for growing these simple crops.
Basa Kene, just like many other refugees benefiting from Uganda's generous land policy, is appreciative for what he has been allocated.
We're given free plots of land, and despite it being small in size, we are very happy because this is not our country, it's Uganda, so we appreciate it.
Many of the refugees who have been allocated land are positively contributing to the local economy of Uganda as they purchase tools and supplies from local businesses. Uganda's policy permits refugees to work, cultivate land and move around freely. Rights rarely granted to that extent in other countries of first asylum, where their arrivals are typically viewed as competitors for jobs and scarce resources.
Ethiopia has enjoyed an increasing flow of remittances annually between 2003 and last year. Ethiopians in the diaspora sent to their home country $300 million in 2003, and that figure has increased dramatically to $5 billion last year, but the country wants more. It says the foreign remittances inflow helps with development in the country and in the alleviation of poverty. Reporter Gurem Chala has more details.
According to the 2018 survey, Ethiopia has got $5 billion of remittance from its diaspora. Now, that amount compared to, for instance, Egypt's $26 billion appears to be small. That number, however, was only $300 million in 2003. Ethiopia is aiming for more.
Recognizing the crucial role remittance can play in poverty reduction, in increasing the amount of foreign exchange, and promoting development in general, the Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs is working with relevant stakeholders to establish a special remittance program, which is at the initial stage now.
Ethiopia's plan, however, is filled with lots of red tapes. The high-level transfers of remittance through informal channels, high cost of formal transfers, and the existence of parallel market exchange rates are some of the challenges which need attention.
To leverage economic gains from remittances and scale up diaspora investment in Ethiopia, it becomes critical to enhance remittances flow through formal channels and support the promotion of innovative financial technologies and funding schemes aimed at encouraging investment of migrant capital in Ethiopia.
Through well-regulated labor migration, incentives to the diaspora, and modern banking and transfer system, Ethiopia now is expected to make the plan of increasing remittance a reality. The good news is it's a well-placed policy frameworks.
Ethiopia has taken different initiatives by developing the 2012 diaspora policy, which aims at creating favorable conditions to enhance their participation in development areas, to contribute to the demand for hard currency, and for the transfer of knowledge and technology.
Ethiopia's government, as well as both state-owned and private financial institutions, have been providing attractive investment and property ownership plans to the larger diaspora community of the country. And so far, many have benefited from such opportunities. That is one of the reasons of many to hope for a drastic increment of remittance into the country in the coming few years.
When we return, international news. City of Gilroy, California holds vigil in honor of those killed in food festival shooting. And later, sports. 12 teams confirmed for African Clubs Championships.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ENN News and World Events. California city of Gilroy, where 3 persons were killed when a teenager attacked a food festival, has honored the victims in a vigil attended by hundreds of residents. Those in attendance lit candles, listened to speeches from local leaders, and joined in chants of Gilroy Strong. Mayor Roland Velasco said, quote, "We cannot let the bastard that did this to us tear us down," end quote. Authorities are still trying to figure out the motive behind Sunday's attack in the city that sits almost 200 kilometers southeast of San Francisco. Police Chief Scott Smithy said the shooter, identified as 19-year-old Santino William Ligon, appeared to have randomly targeted people with an assault-type rifle. On the last day of the Gilroy Garlic Festival, the dead included a 6-year-old boy, a 13-year-old girl, and a man in his 20s. 12 other festival goers were wounded in the attack, which ended with the police killing the shooter. There has been a drop in Central American migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. Analysts said it's due to reasons like the dangers of the summer season's heat and Mexico's crackdown on migrants. But as Don Williams reports, there's also a policy leaving asylum seekers in limbo in Mexico.
2 people jump from a car and make a dash for the US border. Nearby, 2 Mexican National Guards patrol the area. Within seconds, the 2 migrants are in US territory. There is little the guards can do. The migrants will be picked up by US Border Patrol. But the flow of migrants into the US appears to have slowed in recent months, following new policies by the Trump administration. The Migrant Protection Protocols, or the Remain in Mexico policy, means migrants must stay in Mexico while their cases are adjudicated. Dilcia and her son Anthony left Honduras because of the violence there. Her husband and other twin son have already reached Houston, Texas. But having been separated on the journey, Dilcia and Anthony have been stuck in Juarez for months.
I miss my child and I miss my partner, and my son has been suffering for his brother because they are twins. I ask God to give me an opportunity to arrive and let me see my child.
Asylum seekers face a long wait. First they are given a number, a system known as metering. The process starts when that number is called, but that can take weeks. Then, under the Remain in Mexico policy, asylum seekers can wait many months in Mexico before they are called to have their cases heard by a judge. Michael is a former soldier that left Honduras with his 4 children. They have their papers and are now awaiting a court date.
I hope they don't send us back, because the truth is that we come from a very dangerous area, and if they send us back, it's like sending us to our deaths.
This hostel was originally set up to help abused and vulnerable women and children from the Juarez area. The shelter accepted its first migrants just over 4 months ago. It now houses some 240.
Ismael Martinez runs the shelter. He's already preparing for more arrivals.
Thousands and thousands are going to stay here in Mexico. There is not another option to go back to their country. Why would they go back? They don't have food. They don't have a home. Some of them don't have families. Why would they go back?
Since the Remain in Mexico program began in January, some 20,000 migrants have been sent back to Mexico. Many of the shelters in Juarez are now stretched to capacity.
Remain in Mexico essentially asks Mexico to meet their international obligations, while we get to not meet ours.
Along the border, a group of migrants huddle next to an emergency gate at the wall. They hope a US Border Patrol will soon pick them up. For many, that will begin another journey, back across a border they risked so much to cross.
And Europe is suffering from a record-breaking heat wave, the second in just 4 weeks. Many big cities are not built for high temperatures, so they are doing whatever they can to cope with the extreme situation. Stephen Devarius reports from Paris.
At noon, some thermometers already indicated 44 degrees Celsius. Everybody copes with this scorching summer in their way.
Drinking lots of water, mainly, sun cream.
When it's too hot, you should stay at home and make sure you stay hydrated.
Luckily, it is possible to escape the heat, at least for a little while.
The city of Paris has installed this giant temporary swimming pool in one of the canals in the heart of the city. And it's a success. Over 2,000 Parisians come here every day to seek refreshment from the heat wave.
In another part of town, the attention goes to the most vulnerable group, the elderly.
The difficulty is the length of the heat wave, because after a couple of days, the body gets very tired.
The largest retirement home in Paris has taken special measures.
We adapt the menus, we serve cold food, we go around regularly with fresh drinks, but old people don't like to drink. So we have to convince them with a varied choice, and we close the stores and the windows.
While the elderly are suffering, the younger ones make just the best of it. They have turned a monumental fountain near the Eiffel Tower into a makeshift beach resort.
Kind of don't dress heavy clothing and just drink a lot of water. Kind of like play in this pond or lake kind of thing, so just try to cool yourself up.
It's unbelievable. It's so shocking.
It's shocking, you say?
Shocking, of course.
In what sense?
Yeah, because it's unusual, 42 degrees, I can imagine, even for Paris.
Ça va, tranquille. It's okay, we're having fun. It's hot, it's the heat wave. We're here with the little one, it's good.
To tourists and visitors, the heat and the fountains are just an extra attraction of the French capital. But the people who live here, the Parisians themselves, well, they will have to face a grim truth. The extreme temperatures may well become the new normal in the future.
Up next, sports. 12 teams confirmed for African Clubs Championships. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. Nigeria Super Eagles and other top African soccer nations have drawn buys for the 2022 World Cup qualifiers. The draw for the first round was made in Cairo on Monday. The ties will be played over 2 legs in September. 14 winners will join in the next draw. The continent's top-ranked 26 sides who have been exempted from the initial rounds of qualifiers. 40 teams will then be split into 10 groups of 4 for the second qualifying round. 10 winners from those groups will then be drawn against each other in home and away fixtures, with 5 winners advancing to Qatar 2022. All Africa's 54 member countries are registered for the competition. And 12 teams have already been confirmed for the African Club Table Tennis Championships, which begins in Lagos on Thursday. Defending champions, Athlete Club of Egypt have been listed as the #1 seed in the women event, while Epmin of Egypt will be heading the men's event at the 2-day championship. Host country Nigeria will be represented by SOJ TT Club of Lagos and Remo Stars TT Club of Ogun in the men event, while G20 of Abuja and Cannon Queen of Calabar will host Nigeria's flag in the women's event. The R-League team will be led by African women champion Dina Meshrif. The 2 best players on the continent, Aruna Quadri of Nigeria and Egypt's Omar Ashar, will play under the colors of MP of Egypt, DR Congo, Togo, Ethiopia, Benin Republic, Senegal, and Rwanda will also be represented in the Continental Club Championship. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit the website annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.